So we're recording. I'll wait till 2 o'clock. Hear the tower clock going, so it must be 2 o'clock. So it's time to commence the meeting, and I call the meeting to order. It's 2 p.m. First item is the attendance at commencement, and I can state that all councillors are in attendance and no one is absent. So I'll move straight to opening message. I'd like to welcome and introduce your new council to you. From my left, we have Division 1 councillors, Councillor Jacob Madsen and Councillor Sheila Island. From Division 2, we have Councillor Nicole Johnnick and Councillor Paul Tully. From Division 3, we have Councillor Marnie Doyle and Councillor Andrew Fennick. How do I say Fennick? Councillor Andrew Fechner. And from Division 4, Councillor Kate Kunzelman and Councillor Russell Milligan. To ensure health directives are followed, we have had to set out 3 tables to my right to accommodate the distancing rules. So thank you very much, Councillors Milligan, Kunzelman and Fechner for accommodating that. You will see that you've elected a council with a wide range, with a wide age spread. You have a council of 9 councillors, with councillors in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s. One of the councillors, Councillor Andrew Fechner, is the youngest councillor in our 100-year history. Welcome, Andrew. And I'm the first female mayor of Ipswich. 8 of the 9 councillors are parents and 3 councillors are grandparents. We have 2 returning councillors, Councillor Island and Councillor Tully, and 7 brand new councillors, including myself, where this is their first time being an elected representative of their community. Our combined experiences and professions come from nursing, IT, law, accounting, business owners, stay-at-home parent and serving in the army. I think you have voted in a council with very diverse backgrounds and life experiences. And I know that we will work hard to do our best to represent you and include you as we lead our beautiful city. This is the first time Ipswich City Councillors are being live streamed, and I welcome and encourage participants and residents to participate. I'm very disappointed that we are not able to have members of the public at the meeting due to health restrictions. Public participation at council meetings are an excellent democratic tool, and I look forward to ensuring that this occurs as soon as the health directives allow it. As your mayor, I need to address the fact that the previous council was dismissed and that we had an interim administrator appointed to run our council. I attended the Queensland Parliament on the 21st of August 2018. I heard the debates in Parliament to dismiss the previous council. All 5 state members of Parliament in the Ipswich area spoke on the need to dismiss the previous council. All 5 MPs, including Joanne Miller, former member for Bundamba, Jennifer Howard, member for Ipswich, Jim Madden, member for Ipswich West, Therese Mullen, member for Jordan, and John Krause, member for Scenic Rim, all spoke in support of dismissing the council. When the Speaker called for a division, I was there. The bells went off, the doors were locked, and all 93 state members of Parliament from across all political parties voted unanimously. They voted to dismiss the formal council. I saw it with my own eyes. As your elected mayor, I will do everything in my power to make sure that your council is never disgraced on the floor of the Queensland Parliament ever again. At the public hearing into the then proposed dissolution of your council, the CCC chairperson, Mr Alan McSporan QC, said, "There has been a collapse of public confidence in that council and these councillors." That is what is being addressed here. It is not about them individually being guilty of misconduct or otherwise. It is about systemic failures collectively of good governance and a lack of transparency and accountability across the board. They stand or fall as they must under the Local Government Act and the Constitution of Queensland as the body, the entity, collectively responsible for the good governance of that community. There has been a failure of that. Interim Administrator Greg Chimello's report, Vision 2020, outlined the challenges, and I quote him from an ABC article. The previous culture was one of secrecy and fiefdoms. There was a lack of respect for the law and a culture of doing deals which rippled through the organisation. Many staff had been bullied or were guilty of bullying, with some councillors determined to direct the work of officers in operational matters. There was a clear lack of respect for process and people. Let me be clear, there will be no tolerance for that same culture in your new council. Our previous council lost us at least $78 million, as per the McGrath-Nichols audit report tabled in the Queensland Parliament by Minister Hinchcliffe. The ABC spoke with the Local Government Association Queensland President, Mark Jamieson, who said, "It's hard to imagine how you could lose that amount of money." He then said it demonstrates what not to do. I'm here to say that we have listened to this loud and clear. Your new council has been in place for 13 days. We have spent that time in induction training from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. in the afternoon and doing our council day jobs after hours. We are a new council who want to serve you. We are also human and not perfect. In the next 4 years, we will endeavour to make the best decisions for our community. We will not get it right every time, but I can promise you that we will be honest with you, that we will share information that we have to hand in considering and making decisions. Where we are told we cannot share information due to legal privilege or being commercial in confidence, we will push back to ensure we can share with you as much as we can while still protecting Ipswich City Council's position in negotiations. Your new council has also arrived at a time of unprecedented pandemic. The COVID-19 virus is like something out of a Hollywood dystopian movie. Fortunately, of the 37 cases we have had in the Westmoreton region, 35 have recovered and 2 are recovering. We have seen thousands of residents either lose their jobs or have their hours reduced dramatically. Many business owners are suffering as they not only cut back the hours of their staff, who they feel responsible for, but their business loans are usually secured by their home, so they face not only losing their business and livelihood, but also their homes. The enforced and necessary social isolation is taking its toll on people who are already dealing with mental health issues, as well as people who are feeling loneliness for the first time. Our community is hurting, and I feel your pain. And I promise that your council will play its part in leading our community's recovery. This year's budget was forecast to have a $3 million surplus. This is clearly not going to happen, and this will be discussed in depth at our agenda item on COVID rate relief and at the financial statements. We're also using brand new meeting procedures that were approved by the Interim Administrator in December 2019. And I'd like to highlight that I would like to make some minor amendments for the next meeting, CEO, to the meeting procedure to allow greater transparency and allow more debate on the floor. I'll be calling for a division on every vote, so it will be recorded how each councillor voted at each motion. This is done in state and federal parliaments, so it's only fair that it is done here. Our community here in Ipswich has incredible spirit and resilience, and I know that with good leadership from your council, businesses and our community, we will come out of the other side stronger and be a city to be reckoned with. And on that, we'll now move on to the Acknowledgement of Country, and I call upon Councillor Kunzelman.
We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet. We pay respect to elders past and present of the Yagara, Jagera and Yugurapul people.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. We now move to the opening prayer, so I ask you to stand. Let us in silence pray or reflect upon our responsibilities to the people of Ipswich. We meet today to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly and make decisions that promote the common good. Amen. We now move on to apologies and leave of absences. We're all in attendance, so there are no apologies, and I've received no leave of absences. We move on now to the declaration of interests in matters on the agenda. I call on all councillors to declare any conflicts of interest. A reminder that while this has been a provision of the Local Government Act for some time, the Crime and Corruption Commission's Operation Belcara found poor management of conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest is defined in the Local Government Act as a conflict between a councillor's personal interests and the public interest, and where it might lead to a decision that is contrary to the public interest. I now open it up to the floor for any conflicts of interest.
In accordance with section 175E of the Local Government Act 2009, I declare that I may have a conflict of interest in the mayoral unit, and because I was a former councillor who helped create the businesses and also accepted the debt back on the books. I propose to deal with this matter by having the other councillors present decide if they believe there is a real or perceived conflict of interest, and whether I can remain in the meeting and take part in the vote on the matter, or whether I must leave the meeting place.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ireland, and thank you very much for your proactive disclosure. I'll open up to the floor to people to ask questions of Councillor Ireland. I'll open up, I guess, firstly, Councillor Ireland. Is it your view that your previous involvement will impact your ability to uphold your responsibilities in accordance with the Local Government Act and make a decision that is in the public interest?
No, there was no material gain. I wasn't on the boards. I don't think it will impact my ability.
So is there any personal financial benefit if you do participate in that? There's none. Are there other questions that the councillors would like to ask?
Just got a query
Yes.
in relation to the wording of the motion, the link to a perceived conflict of interest. It also covers matters of the previous council, but it also covers matters of the current council, for example, the publishing of councillor expenses, travel information and so on. So there could be an argument that if the mere connection is the fact that the person was or is a councillor, which I don't believe creates a conflict, that all councillors would have a potential or perceived conflict. But I don't believe that it is. There was no material benefit to the council or any council in the past, except that they were a councillor during the past 5 years.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Any other discussion, questions? Councillor Fickner? Oh, no, sorry.
No further discussion, but I would just like, in accordance with section 175E, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 2009, move that there is no personal or financial benefit for Councillor Ireland, and that she may participate in the meeting in relation to the matter, including voting on the matter as well.
Thank you for that motion. I'll now put it to the vote. Oh, sorry. Sorry? I need a seconder. So Councillor Kunzelman is seconding that motion. All those in favour? Now I'm calling a division. So we have Councillor Madsen, Councillor Jonnick, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fickner, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Milligan and myself are in favour for her to stay. So that motion is carried, that Councillor Ireland will stay in the room. Are there any other conflicts of interest?
It's in the same vein.
Yes.
Basically, that I was a councillor in the previous council, and there were matters in relation to the width of this proposed motion. I didn't receive any personal benefits except my council salary. I don't have any financial interests in any of the matters that are currently under review, in my view. I may have a perceived conflict of interest. I'll put it to the meeting, but in indicating that, I am aware of the motion that can be carried, but I will indicate to the meeting that if I am permitted to stay, I won't vote in relation to this matter.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tully. May I ask, Councillor Tully, what was your involvement with the previously controlled entities? You were a director of a number of them, or?
Yes, I was. I was director of at one stage, but not at all times of each of the companies. We weren't paid. We didn't receive any remuneration in respect of those companies.
Okay. Oh, can I just remind councillors to turn their microphones on? Was that not happening? Sorry?
When they're talking.
When they're talking, yes. May I ask Councillor Tully, do you think you can participate your responsibilities in accordance with the Local Government Act and make a decision that is in the public interest?
Yes, I do, because this motion is principally looking forward to the future, and I think the key to this is, even though it does cover previous council and the current council, there's no problem whatsoever.
Okay. Might have someone move a motion to support Councillor Tully staying in the room for that, to participate in that vote?
I move the motion that Councillor Tully stay in the room.
Thank you very much, Councillor Doyle. Do I have a seconder?
Second that.
A second, Councillor Fechner? All those in favour? We're calling a division, so Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnnick, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Milligan and myself. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Tully, for your proactive disclosure.
Just clarify that the minutes will show that I didn't vote in relation to that
Yes,
matter, please.
and I also note that Councillor Ireland didn't vote in hers either. So I didn't. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the mayoral minute. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. It's another. May I ask if there are any other conflicts of interest?
Mayor, in accordance with Section 175E of the Local Government Act 2009, I declare that I may have a conflict of interest in item G5, nomination of a district representative to the LGAQ Policy Executive. And as I may have perceived conflict with the motion that may be raised from that, as the second option is that Council endorse the nomination of Lockyer Valley Regional Council Mayor Tanya Milligan. Mayor Tanya Milligan is my former wife. We don't have an ongoing relationship, and all that we do share is we have a son together who is adult and independent and does not reside with either of us. So I don't perceive that I do have a conflict of interest. I just wanted to highlight it to the council. So I propose to deal with this matter by having other councillors present decide if they believe there is a real or perceived conflict of interest and whether I can remain in the meeting and take part in the vote on the matter, or whether I must leave the meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Milligan. Does anyone have any questions of Councillor Milligan? No? May I have someone propose a motion? Yes, please, Councillor Kunzelman.
I move that Councillor Milligan be allowed to stay in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Doyle? Thank you very much. I'll now call on a vote on the division. All those in favour? So I'll call Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnnick, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Milligan and myself.
Not Councillor
Not
Milligan.
Councillor.
Oh, sorry, I'll take that off, not Councillor Milligan. Thank you, Theo. Are there any other conflicts of interest? May I commend Councillors Ireland, Tully and Milligan for their proactive disclosure. Thank you.
Mayor, may I ask that I've been reported that I please?
Yeah, that you didn't vote. Thank you. Wonderful. Now move on to the mayoral minute. I move my motion for a transparency and integrity hub as per the report and will speak to the motion. The new council comes in at a time after many years of turmoil, broken trust and a loss
Point
of
of order. There is no seconder. I believe you need a seconder.
mayoral minute doesn't require a seconder.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Todd, but feel
You've
free.
got one up on the...
No. Feel free to pull me up. Thank you. The new council comes at a time after many years of turmoil, broken trust and at least $78 million loss. This motion has been developed based on the input of our councillor-only workshop that was held on the 15th of April and subsequent discussions during our induction. It also was formed by significant community consultation and expectation communicated to many councillors during the election campaign. The underpinning principles of the hub are threefold. 1, adopt global best practice approach to open and transparent public sector financial management. 2, demonstrate responsible and transparent governance and decision making. And 3, enable data-driven decision making and rebuild public and stakeholder trust. Early feedback from the community has been overwhelmingly positive, as it will address the shortcomings highlighted in the Crime and Corruption Commission's Windage report. The establishment of the hub will allow us to finally provide the information our community are asking for. It will allow us to have closure on the past and also commits your new council to the highest levels of openness, transparency and accountability. It is my vision that this is just the start of our journey, to be the most open and accountable council in Australia. I want the people all over Australia saying, I wish our council was like Ipswich City Council. All residents deserve to know how their money is spent and should have the opportunity to be involved in decision making. And they should also have access to the same economic opportunities and infrastructure and services as our South East Queensland neighbours. We must not ever go back to the dark days of deal making. Your council must never again damage our reputation and our livelihoods. All residents of Ipswich deserve a council that is honest and can do the job properly. And with that, I want to move the Transparency and Integrity Hub to you. I now open the motion for discussion by councillors.
Do I just go?
Yeah, please do. Sorry,
Okay.
Councillor Ireland.
I've got but I didn't know what I was doing. I pressed it.
It's a green light. Thank you, Councillor Ireland.
I would just like to know, you've said that if it exceeds 200,000 per year, if it exceeds, you haven't said what you're going to do. So 200,000 5 years from now is still going to be your budget. What are you going to do to keep it at that?
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. The motion shows that for the initial setup, we're looking at a maximum of 200,000 and that going on year would be no more than 100,000. We'll be going out to open market and to tender, so it'll be a fixed price contract to be delivered. Good, thank you. Are there any other? Well, I guess I've moved.
Mayor
Sorry.
Teresa Harding, I would just like to confirm that going forward after establishment of the hub, it will be a requirement that staff internally at council will need to manage the portal. Is that correct? But that can be done internally.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I believe so, yes. Nothing more. It's been moved and seconded as a mayoral motion. I now put it to the vote and we'll call the division. Those in favour of the Transparency and Integrity Hub, please raise your hand. Okay, so we'll go around. Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnnick, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzmann, Councillor Milligan, and myself voted in favour. Thank you. Those against? No one is recorded against. Those abstaining? Councillor Tully is abstaining. Please make sure that's in the records. And we're just making sure that that's in the records on our screen here. Thank you. We'll now move on to business outstanding. This is correcting an administrative error with respect to the effective day of commencement of the TLPI number 2/2020. I call for a councillor to move this. Any councillor? We can't discuss it until it's moved and seconded under our meeting procedures.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you, thank you, councillor.
And I second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Now that it's been moved, we can now open it up for discussion. May I ask the CEO to talk to the motion to explain it, please?
Could I just raise a point of order
please do.
to start with, before the discussion? Can I clarify in relation to the meeting, the ordinary meeting of the 24th of March 2020, that's the minutes we're talking about? I take it they haven't been confirmed.
I'm happy.
The intention would be that they would be confirmed at the first ordinary meeting of the council. This is a special meeting.
So they can't be confirmed here. So the wording of the recommendation says that the minutes of the council ordinary meeting be amended. So we'd need some word like draft minutes or proposed minutes or some word like that, because they are not yet the minutes of that meeting.
So you're proposing a variation to that?
Well, I'd propose an amendment to include the words draft. Before the word minutes.
Yes.
In the third line.
So you then
Thank you,
seek
Councillor
the
Taylor.
opinion of the mover and seconder?
Yep. So may I just seek the opinion of Councillor Doyle and Councillor Fichtner that you're okay with that?
Yes.
You're okay with that?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Both the mover and the seconder agree to that variation. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Tully. I think now we're back to you, CEO.
Mr Tabulo will outline
Could you
background behind this.
Could you also please state your name and your position?
Certainly, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Mayor and Councillors, my name is Peter Tabulo. I'm the General Manager of Planning and Regulatory Services. I present the report to you today with the view to making a procedural correction to the draft minutes that need to be confirmed, as we just discussed, but were considered at the meeting on the 24th of March. You will see in the report that there was a discrepancy between the date that the Minister gave approval for the TLPI to commence on the 28th of January of this year, as compared to a reference to the 7th of April that was in an attachment to the documentation, which was just an oversight on council officers' behalf. That date should have read the 28th of the 1st, 2020.
Thank you.
May I just ask a question?
Please do, Councillor Fichtner. Have you got your...
Yep, mic's on, thank you. Between the date of the 28th of the 1st and the 7th of the 4th, were there any applications made before the implementation of
No.
the TLPI?
No.
So there's no implications of the date?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fichtner. Any other questions? In that case, I'll call for a vote, and we'll do it by division. All those in favour of this motion, raise your hand. And I'll look around the room. It is unanimous. Any correct? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is G1, 2020 Local Government Quadrennial Election Report. May I call on a councillor to move this motion? No one wants to move?
Mayor, I'll move that Council note the Electoral Commission of Queensland's notice of election results for the Ipswich City Council 2020 Local Government Quadrennial Elections. Thank
you very much, Councillor Mulligan. Is there anyone there who will second the motion?
I
Thank you,
gladly
Councillor.
second it.
Oh, sorry. I'll call Councillor Ireland first, but thank you very much. I think before we go to questions, I think the CEO is probably will slow something.
I'd like to also confirm for the record that all elected councillors have undertaken their declaration of office before me, and it's been appropriately recorded.
Thank you very much, CEO. Any questions? Oh, sorry, can we just go back? It was Councillor Ireland that seconded. She said it, yes, sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now we'll vote on those election results, which seems kind of funny that we're voting on our own. But those who are in favour of the motion, please raise your hand and I'll call a division. I'll look around the room. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to G2, the appointment of Deputy Mayor. So, Councillor Kunzelman.
I move that Council resolve to appoint Councillor Marnie Doyle as Deputy Mayor, and that Council resolve to declare vacant the office of Deputy Mayor after each 12-month period of the 2020-2024 Council term, and then appoint a new Deputy Mayor from its councillors. The office of Deputy Mayor will be declared vacant and subsequently appointed to in accordance with Section 165 of the Local Government Act of 2009.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Milligan. Thank you very much. I now open the floor for any discussion. I should just check, Councillor Doyle, that you're okay with that.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
Mayor.
thank you. I now open the floor to any discussion.
Mayor, can you also nominate somebody else at this stage or not?
You can, and it will become a foreshadowed motion. So if this one gets voted down, then it's considered then. So if you'd like to? If you'd like to notify, yes.
I'd like to nominate Nicole Jonick for the same position, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other discussions, questions?
Does it need to be seconded?
No. In that case, we'll go through to a vote as per Councillor Kunzelman's. All those in favour of Councillor Marnie Doyle being the Deputy Mayor and also ensuring that, that it's for a 12-month period, please raise your hand and I will be calling a division. So Councillor Madsen, Councillor Jonick, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzelman and Councillor Milligan all voted. Congratulations, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Milligan. Yeah. So we should check for. Okay. Next, we'll have the date and form of the future council meetings. So the council determine a form and a schedule of future meetings. Councillor Doyle.
I move to accept the recommendation as per option 4, being full council meetings on a 3-weekly cycle, supplemented with briefings. By proceeding with option 4, some of your councillors have the same opportunity to be involved in the decision-making process, which I believe is crucial to our leading and learning process.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll just hold it there. You can speak to it once it's been seconded,
Sorry.
if that's okay. Do I have a seconder for option 4?
Me.
Councillor
I'll second
Milligan. Thank you. Now I'll move to open it for discussion. I think Councillor Jonick's put a hand up. Yes.
Can I, is it a foreshadowed motion that I look at option 3, revised standing committee structure with the single committee before
Thank you.
the ordinary?
Yes, so that'll be a foreshadowed motion. So it can still be, we'll be discussing options when we
Okay.
open it up. Thank you very much, Councillor Jonick. I'll now open it up for discussion before we go to a vote. So, Councillor Doyle, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion first?
Just that it's my understanding that council can resolve to amend the meeting and committee structures at any time.
Correct. Councillor Fechner, were you going to, or no? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion for option 4? No? I guess my only input before we go to the vote, in wrapping up the discussion, I'll say that I'll be supporting option 4, as I believe it provides greater transparency of council considerations. That means all the decisions will come to this table and everything will be discussed and considered at this table. It will make finding the council papers easier on our website and will also allow the council to meet more often, namely every 3 weeks rather than a monthly cycle. So it will also allow a quicker decision-making cycle. On that, I'll now ask for a vote and call for a division. All those in favour, raise your hand. So we've got Councillors Doyle, Councillors Kunzelman and Milligan. Those against? Councillors Madsen, Ireland, Jonick, Tully and Fechner. So the motion was not carried, and we now go to the foreshadowed motion. Councillor Jonick, so I'll let you move it, and then someone will second it. So would you like to move your...
The motion for option 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jonick. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Ireland, thank you very much. I now open it up to the floor to discuss.
Could I just
Please do.
add,
that if this is going to be voted in, there's the issue of the name. I don't think the name, the consideration committee, is adequately describes it, and we could grapple with names for a long time. But I might suggest this, and I'll move this as an amendment, that the name of the committee be the General Purposes Committee,
General Purposes Committee.
if that's acceptable to the mover and seconder.
Okay, so the mover was Councillor Jonik. Are you happy with that variation? And Councillor Ireland, so the mover and seconder are happy with that? Yep. Will there be any discussion? Please do, Councillor Madsen.
I just think option 3 also improves transparency. It'll be live streamed for everyone at home. When we look at the notion that online it'll be easier for people to just find the information with option 4, I would warrant that anybody who's currently watching at home or reviewed this meeting's agenda will easily be able to do so for the committee structure proposed by option 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madsen. I think Councillor Fechner, you wanted to...
No, I agree with that, yeah. If we're going to adopt the terms of reference, 7.8 explicitly says that those committee meetings will be live streamed. I'm happy about
Excellent.
that.
I must admit I would like any of these committee meetings to be live streamed.
Yep.
And we'll need to have a chair. Well, since everything's coming there, can I move that I be the chair of that committee? If it goes ahead.
The motion needs to have a chair, or we'll elect the chair after the motion
Okay.
is moved.
Yes. Okay, any other discussion on that? Thank you. Then I'll call for a division, a call for a vote, and we'll do a division. All those in favour of option 3, raise your hand. So we have Councillor Madsen, Ireland, Jonik, Tully and Fechner. All those against? It's just, I think, myself, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Cornsman and Councillor Milligan. So that motion was carried. So we will go to option 3. Now I just want to check something with the CEO, that we can do a move.
We'll have to do a supplementary motion, seek a supplementary motion to elect the chair.
Okay. I'll seek to do a supplementary motion to, for the chair. I'd like to move myself to be the chair of that standing committee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kunzelman as a seconder. I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Madsen.
If allowed, I'd like to foreshadow a motion that the chair of the standing committee be rotated amongst councillors. As we're all aware, there's a lot of new councillors in this council, and providing them with an opportunity to develop their skill set as a chair of a council meeting, I think is a path worth considering.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Any other discussion? No? Okay, I'll put it to the vote that I am the chair. All those in favour, and I'll call for a division. I think myself, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Cornsman and Councillor Milligan. Thank you. Those against? Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Jonik. Councillor Fechner, so we're 4 each. Thank you. Abstaining? Councillor Tully. So we are 4 apiece. So I have the casting vote, and that is my understanding,
An
CEO.
abstention is counted in the negative, Mayor.
May I just seek clarification from the CEO on that, please?
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, it's my opinion, is
Yes.
that the abstention is counted in the negative.
Okay. So that was not carried. So we then go to the foreshadowed motion. Councillor Madsen, would you like to reiterate your foreshadowed motion?
Yeah. The premise is that we just rotate it amongst new councillors to develop their skill set, with the view that should we consider moving out towards a plurality of committees in the future, we're placing ourselves with people who have the experience to chair said plurality.
Big words. May I have a seconder for, thank you, Councillor Ireland, for seconding that motion.
Clarify the rotation is a monthly rotation.
Seeking clarification, that rotation would be a monthly rotation, just to...
That would be my preference, but I'm open to suggestions from my learned colleagues.
Well, I'll suggest
Yes, thank you, Councillor Tully.
to add the words between the councillors on a monthly basis, commencing with the mayor and then following in divisional order.
So we have to see if the mover is happy with that or not. Wait for the green light.
Yeah, I accept that amendment. I think it puts us in good stead as a
That's
group
fine.
moving forward.
Councillor Ireland, as a seconder, do you agree with that variation? Thank you very much. Would anyone like to speak to that? Anyone's happy with that order, if it does proceed? In that case, I'll put it to the vote and I'll call it by division. Those who support this amendment, raise your hand. So Councillor Madsen, Ireland, Johnnick, Tully and Fechner. Those who are against it, would you like to raise your hand? Councillors Doyle, Councillor Milligan and myself, and no one abstaining. So that motion is carried. Thank you. It's great to see democracy in action. Thank you. We'll now move on to the appointment of a number of councils to different boards, committees and things like that. So we move to G4, which is the councillor members of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. So we need a motion which moves 2 councillors as members of that Audit and Risk Committee for a period of 2 years. Do we have a motion to that? Thank you very much, Councillor Tully.
And I move that Councillor Doyle is the second there.
If Councillor Tully agrees, then we can put him on.
Yeah,
I'll just see if Councillor Doyle wants to do that first. Or decline.
I agree, thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Tully, would you like to amend or do a
No,
variation
I'll
to that?
accept that inclusion of that. As
You
as an
accept that?
amendment, yeah.
And obviously yourself. So that the motion is at the moment that the 2 members of that committee are Councillor Johnnick and Councillor Doyle. So mover was Councillor Tully and Councillor Fechner was the seconder.
Can I just clarify that I think even though B refers to that charter, perhaps the paragraph A should make it clear that it's appointment until March 2022. Because paragraph A is the operative appointment provision, and I think that the words until March 2022 should be included at the end. I'll move that as an amendment, if that's acceptable
Do we
for the
need
second.
to?
It's captured in Part B.
I think it's captured in Part B. It's all one of the same.
Well, it says what it
Motion.
should be, but it doesn't say that it is under paragraph A.
Okay. So obviously as the
Well,
mover,
I'll propose that.
you
and if the
propose that.
seconder's
Councillor
happy,
Fechner,
yeah.
you're okay with that? Okay, so we'll accept this up at the next variation. And open this up for now discussion. There being no
I
sorry.
guess I speak directly to the appointment of Councillor Doyle and Councillor Johnnick as 2 extremely experienced councillors that we have here. Councillor Doyle and all of her experience as in her legal career, and also Councillor Nicole Johnnick, who has extensive background in accounting and a keenness to learn as well. So I support that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fechner. Any other comments, discussions? In that case, I now call for a vote and I'll be calling for a division. All those in favour, raise your hand. And I see that we're unanimous. Congratulations, ladies. So the motion was carried. The next is G5, nomination of a district representative to the LGAQ Policy Executive. We'll look at the first matter first, because we are looking at either nominating someone from Ipswich City Council or endorse the nomination of Lockyer Valley Regional Councillor Mayor Tenny Milligan, noting I guess we've already decided on that Councillor Milligan for you to stay.
So it's the acceptance of, if that was the process, A and C.
Yeah. A and C. So I need a councillor to put forward a motion.
I would like to nominate Kate Kunzelman as representative.
Thank you very much, Councillor Doyle. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor
Mayor,
Nolan?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll now open that up for discussion. There being, yes, Councillor Johnny?
Do I do a foreshadow motion
Yeah.
to nominate Councillor Paul Tully?
Yes, sure.
For that appointment?
Foreshadowed motion for Councillor Paul Tully. Thank you. Yep. So are now any other? No. Well, then we'll go straight to a vote for Councillor Kunzelman to be the LGAQ Policy Executive. All those in favour, and I'll call the vote by division. Raise your hand. Myself, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Kunzelman and Councillor Milligan. Thank you. All those against? Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnnick and Councillor Fechner. And abstaining? Councillor Tully. So we have a similar situation where it's 4 apiece and the abstention is seen as a negative, so that motion was not carried. We then move to the foreshadowed motion by Councillor Johnnick for Councillor Tully to be the council's representative. Councillor Johnnick, would you like to say anything or seek a seconder?
I'd like to seek a seconder.
Who would like to second that motion? Councillor Madsen is seconding that. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
And I'll now
second the motion.
and I'll open up for any discussions or questions. Are you wanting to say something? If you put your hand, that helps me, because I don't know when you're reaching for the button, whether you're turning it off or turning it on.
I seem to press it so hard that it goes off and on again in the one motion. So
You'll have to have fewer wheat bix.
Apologise. I just say that we all know that Councillor Tully has extensive experience with the LGAQ, and I think that we can benefit from having him in that position.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Any other discussion points? In that case, I'll call it to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Tully, please raise your hand. So we've got Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnnick, Councillor Tully, Councillor Fechner, Councillor Kunzelman and Councillor Milligan. Those against? Myself and Councillor Doyle. No abstentions. That motion is carried. Congratulations, Councillor Tully. Appointment of chairperson and deputy chair, G6, appointment of chairperson and deputy chairperson of the City of Ipswich Local Disaster Management Group. This is traditionally usually held by the mayor as chair, and I guess we'll open up for the deputy mayor, but a deputy position. May I have a councillor move for someone to be the chair and the deputy chair? Councillor Madsen.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I move that Mayor Harding be appointed as chair of the Local Disaster Management Group, and Councillor Kate Kunzelman be appointed as deputy.
Thank you. And Councillor Fechner has seconded that motion. We'll now open it to the floor for discussion. Being no discussion, I'll put the motion to the floor and we'll call a vote and have a division. So, and I call the division. Those in favour, raise your hand. Looking around the room, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, and so that motion is carried. Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Kunzelman. It's a very rewarding position.
Sorry, was the second?
Councillor Fechner. Next, G7, appointment of members to the Ipswich Rivers Improvement Trust. So council appoint 2 councillors to become members of the Ipswich Rivers Improvement Trust. Do I have a motion to nominate 2 councillors for that? And if you put your hand so I know.
Off you go.
Councillor Doyle.
Nominate councillors Madsen and councillor Beckner.
And your second, and Councillor Ireland has seconded that motion. Open it up now for discussion. There being no discussion, we'll go to a vote, and I call a vote by division. All those in favour? I can see by the hands it's unanimous, and so carried. Thank you.
Just confirming that was councillor.
And Councillor Madsen. Thank you. G8, shareholder representative for the Ipswich City Council's controlled entities. There are 2 parts to this. This is going to be an interesting one, I think. The council shall nominate a councillor to be the shareholder representative for Ipswich City Properties and Ipswich City Enterprises. And it's also asking to recognise Steve Greenwood's role as the shareholder representative for Ipswich City Properties and Ipswich City Enterprises. Is there a motion to move for any of the councils to be that shareholder representative? CEO, none of the councillors. Gee, Councillor Tully. No. Do you wish to accept that or not?
I'm not particularly interested in fulfilling that role. Thank you for the nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you for the nomination. Means a lot, but I'd rather focus on other areas, and I think there may be potentially a council officer with a better skill set to assist in the wind-up of those companies.
Yep. One thing that has been, I guess I could put forward that we could send this back to the CEO for him and the council officers to fulfil those obligations. So I'll put forward a motion that the shareholders representative will be sourced from the CEO.
Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan.
CEO nominate a member of staff because I'm a director.
Or nominate a staff, yes, so you could organise that. The CEO organise, well, he won't be the...
Shareholders rep, okay.
So the CEO can't be the shareholders rep because he's the director, but he can organise for someone to be the shareholders rep from council.
CEO nominate a member of staff.
Yeah, the CEO nominate a member of staff to perform the role. And that we thank Steve Greenwood for his discharging his duties to date. Might have someone second that. Was that you? Yeah, Councillor Milligan seconded it before. Any discussion on this? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Raise your hand. I'll look around the room. It's unanimous, so therefore it's carried. Thank you, CEO. We'll now move on to G9, Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited, 2018 to 2019 financial statements and financial management report. So we are looking at the financial statements themselves. May I have a motion moved by one of the councillors?
I move to lay this matter on the table.
Thank you very much.
I second that.
But don't need a seconder? So I'll just look at this. So we'll move straight to lay this to the table. All those in favour? It's unanimous. And probably the next one as well. And therefore carried. Next one's also Cherish G10, Cherish the Environment Foundation Council representatives. We'll be looking at moving the names of 2 councillors. I guess I'll just preface the fact that we received these reports of this on Friday afternoon and some other information this morning, and that may guide people with what they want to do today. And Is there anyone who'd like to move a motion?
I move again to lay to the table.
Thank you very much. I'll put that straight to the vote then. Those who vote to lay the matter to the table, I'll call vote by, don't need a second, but vote by division. I'll look around, it's unanimous, so it's carried and the matter is laid to the table. Now move to G11, which is rates relief in response to COVID. May I ask for a councillor to move a motion? Thank you, Councillor Ireland.
I think that during this time,
Thank you, Councillor Ireland.
I just think that during this time, with the federal and state governments offering some sort of relief to residents, that it's a good idea for us to extend the due date for the April-June rates notice to give people a bit of a chance to, if they haven't saved the money, to get ready to pay their rates notice.
Thank you very much. So your motion is to extend the due date for
Yes.
this latest April-June payment, to extend it from the 14th of May to the 18th of June. May I have a seconder to that? Councillor Doyle seconded that. May we have open that up for discussion?
Mayor, I believe that with the
Councillor Lee.
various options that we have considered and discussed at length, that this option is the better of all, in that it's the most immediate assistance that council can give to the ratepayers within the local government area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Madsen?
While I support the motion and what it means, I believe it should talk about the discount, shouldn't it?
It's just an extension of time.
Yeah, that's the discount.
Don't rates notices have a due date and a discount due date?
Yeah, so that's extending that.
Discount due date.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct, yes. Thank you, Councillor. If there's no other discussion points, I'd just like to take this time to, during this time of discussion, to point out some of the things that the council have been doing over the last, 8 weeks to support the community. There has been a waiver and refund of a range of fees and charges, including footpath dining, food licence, event licence and booking fees. The council has provided rent abatement for community and some commercial leases. They've also ensured that payments have been made within 7 days rather than the normal 30 days, releasing millions of dollars back into our community. We've also had a COVID-19 business adaptation program where over 200 participants in Ipswich have been part of that. We've also had over 150 contacts in the business and community organisation outreach. The transfer of community council programs have moved online, such as Storytime, Healthy Active. We've also launched the Ipswich Grant Finder support portal, and the council's also provided significant community development support to the Ipswich Food Barn and Ipswich Hospital Foundation. And council have also removed the time limits and so on for the parking in Roderick Street to assist all the staff at Westmoreton Health and Ipswich Hospital. Are there any other points for discussion? Or no? In that case, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? We'll look around the room. It's unanimous, so it's carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to G12, community. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to do something a bit naughty if I can. Just in response to the COVID that we've just discussed, council receives about 3% of taxes as rates, and the other 97 goes to federal and state governments. And so our income goes directly to providing services to the residents like bin collection, mowing and community economic recovery, and we aren't eligible for JobKeeper. So I'm really pleased that we're able to balance supporting families who are going through a hard time and still maintain the high level of service that council provide. Now move on to G12, community donation request. Request exceeding $15,000 in the financial year 1920.
Mayor, I'd like to move that council approve, as per recommendation, the council approve community financial support of $11,790 to Tivoli Social Enterprises Limited for the purchase of meal packaging to service an increased demand for meals prepared by the Tivoli Social Enterprises Community Kitchen and distributed to members of the community in need during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you very much, Councillor Milligan. And Councillor Kunzelman also seconds that. I now open this up for questions and debate, discussion. There being none, I'll move straight...
Mayor, I would like to just add that I'm very familiar with Tivoli Social Enterprises. They are a results-driven organisation providing assistance to the community. The assistance they give is wide and varied, and it is all for the right reasons, and particularly in this current environment, I think I would ask my fellow councillors to consider seriously in improving this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Milligan. Any other discussion points, questions? Yes, Councillor Kunzelman.
I support the motion because it's in Division 4, but also because this plan has an immediacy that is really important at this time. We're not going to wait 6 months for an outcome here. We're going to get it now.
Very, very good point, Councillor Kunzelman. Thank you. Any other points? Well, I'll go straight to the vote and call for a division. Those in favour? I'll look around the room and it's unanimous, so it's carried. Thank you very much. Move on to G13, delegation to CEO to enter into contract under local buy contract for the supply of electricity for small contestable sites. Now, to commence discussion, I do need a mover and a seconder before we can have a discussion on this. May I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. For this, thank you for this. And Councillor Fechner has also said he will second that to commence discussion. So I'll hand over, I'll probably discuss things ask a question of you, CEO. It appears that the timing of this particular contract is a bit awkward, which has resulted in the council having, I see, as limited options. So I guess I would ask you, what other providers could provide better value than local buy?
I'll hand over to our procurement manager who can provide background to the situation.
When you come up, do you mind stating your name and your job title? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard White, Manager of Procurement within Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. White.
On the point of the timing, this is the 3-year cycle for us, and sadly it's sort of hit right now, and the electrical supply market provides very limited time for consideration of their offers, so usually a 5 to 10 business day window that their price is set. The matter for us coming to council is a matter of delegation. This will be over $2 million, so it needs to be considered by council. However, we need to sub-delegate due to the time we have to quickly turn this around and accept the offer. We're using local buy in this instance. We've used local buy for this small contestable site. So a small contestable site is a site that uses under 100 kilowatt hours per year. We have around 300 of those in Ipswich. That means sites like small parks with the barbecues, electrical barbecues and lighting, some small sporting fields and some streetscape, landscaping scape. Council also uses 2 other electricity supply market contracts, one for our street lighting, over 27,000 street lights, so we cover that in that agreement, and 27 larger sites, which is our large contestable. This has been taken previously by council. They tried to do this by themselves instead of using the collective buying power of local buy. Gold Coast tried. It didn't work. They ended up coming back to the local buy agreement. So it's more a collective bargaining issue. We're just not a large enough user in the state of Queensland that we could drive a harder bargain by ourselves rather than with local.
And so you're telling, because it's a 3-year contract, are you saying it'll always be, we can only lock in the prices 5 to 10 days beforehand? That's the way the
and then it's
industry.
Yep.
Okay.
So could I just, local buy go out to tender?
Yeah.
That's on our behalf. Just to explain, local buy go out to tender on our behalf.
Actually, do you want to?
Local buy go out to tender on behalf of the local governments that are participating in the agreement. There might be 60 or 70 councils. They aggregate their usage, so we all identify our usage. They put that out to tender. So it might be, rather than us sending out a $2.25 million contract, there's a $150 million contract or some sort of number like that that goes out to tender. And obviously, because of economies of scale, the large providers then sharpen their pencils because of the size of the offer. Right. Local buy take a small, very, very tiny share of that. That's that contract value from the supplier to cover their costs. And local buy is a subsidiary of the Local Government Association of Queensland.
Are there any other questions of Mr White while he's here? Councillor Doyle.
Mr White, can I just ask, have we, so I understand the role of local buy. Are there any competitors out there? Other community?
State government, I believe, but they tend to negotiate for the state government on these. I don't believe we have access to their arrangement, but I can confirm that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr White. I appreciate you coming forward today. Thank you. Moving forward, CEO, in making your decision on this, I think it was the Council's expectation that value for money and sound market testing will be part of the process that you undergo. Based on that, we had a mover, which was that Councillor Kunzelman, and a seconder was Councillor Fechner. All those in favour of entering this, please raise your hand and I call a division. I look around and it's unanimous, so the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now go to G14, Delegation of Council Powers and Functions to the CEO. And again, I'll call for someone to move and second it so we can discuss this delegation. I have someone to move. Second. Councillor Jonick, thank you very much. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman, for seconding that. CEO, I'll move to you. I'll ask the first question as we open it up. Could you please explain these powers? And I think also we're interested to know what other delegations that the CEOs of the other South East Queensland councils have.
I'll hand you over to Sonia Cooper, the General Manager of Corporate Services, to go through the process.
Thank you. Do you mind saying your name and your...
Thank you. Sonia Cooper, General Manager, Corporate Services. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors and CEOs. We are able to share that in relation to the delegation to the CEO in the Redlands City Council, that it too is an up to and including $2 million limit for the CEO to enter into an individual contract. We're also able to share that in relation to Gold Coast Council, that it is not limited. So the CEO at Gold Coast has an unlimited delegation to enter into a contract in terms of the legislative delegation. Mm-hmm. However, the procurement handbook for Gold Coast City Council limits any one contract to the value of $100 million in Gold Coast. Based on our research, other councils similar or neighbouring also limit their decisions in relation to contracts by their procurement arrangements, but I'm not able to cite any other examples at this point locally that are relevant for consideration.
And what is the current limit at the moment?
So at the moment, there is no limit. It's an unlimited delegation to the CEO to enter into a contract.
So this motion is moving from unlimited to $2 million?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the General Manager? No? Thank you very much, Ms Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion points, concerns? In that case, I'll call a vote and call a division. All those in favour? Unanimous as I look around. So it's carried. Thank you very much. G15, the extension of the Ranbury Management Group contract, Nicholas Street, for the Ipswich Central property. as per the report. May I ask for a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move this motion, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnnick, for moving this motion. Do I have a seconder?
Second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Fickner, also for seconding that. We'll now open this up for discussion. Anyone? Councillor Fickner, would you, or no? I wasn't sure if that was a hand or not.
This is a question I guess I have of Sean Madigan about the arrangement.
So through me to...
So, as it stands, the current contract will expire tomorrow, and we are going to extend it by a further 12 months. Within that 12 months, there's going to be 4 phases of works that are being done. Phase 1, 2 and 3, I believe, have been funded, and we're still seeking funding for Phase 4 for the retail development of the Nicholas Street redevelopment. Just with that, if we're committing to a price with Rambreys for project managing and Phase 4 never actually goes ahead, do we still owe them that money?
I'm going to just say your name and your job title.
Sean Madigan, General Manager of Coordination and Performance. In relation to the contract extension, it's an extension of 12 months, not the actual specifics of the work that will be conducted, so it's just an extension to make sure that that contract is still applicable in the event the Council chooses to exercise the option for Package 4 in your confidential, which is the retail assessment and development. I should advise there is a standing decision of the interim administrator previously to progress with those works. However, the extension that we will exercise with Rambry will be subject to Council upholding the decision of the administrator moving forward. So we aren't committing ourselves to the additional dollars amount that are in the report and the confidential item that you see. It'll still be a decision of Council as to whether or not we proceed and fund those additional works.
Thanks, Sean.
Does that answer your question? Or
yeah.
Would you like? Are there any other questions of Mr. Madigan? No, thank you very much, Mr. Madigan. I'll open the floor to any other discussion on this extension. There being no other discussion points, I'll move to vote on this with a division. All those in favour? It's unanimous, so carried. Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda. G16, the monthly financial performance report, February 2020 and March 2020. We get 2 months worth. So may I ask for a councillor to move and to second this motion? Councillor Madson's moving it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, move.
And seconding that motion? Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. I think we'll probably, I'll ask the CEO if we could have the responsible officer come down to brief us and present the report. That would be wonderful.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. My name's Jeff Keach, the Manager of Finance within Corporate Services. You're right, Madam Mayor, the report is in relation to both February and March's. I'll speak mainly to the March results, being obviously the more recent results there, and can go through the report in a little bit of detail with you, and happy to take questions at the end. The report I'll highlight is sort of pre the impacts of COVID at this point in time. We haven't really seen those washing through the results as at the end of March. But you'll note when looking at the March results that we're a little bit behind where we'd like to be in relation to our budgeted deficit at that stage in time, and that's been impacted by a number of items. The detail of those is outlined in the report, but I'd just sort of pick up a couple of those for your information. In relation to revenue, you'll note there that we're in front on revenue by about 1.5 million. That's primarily in other revenue noted around things like some tax that we received from Queensland Urban Utilities, some general sale contracts, etc. Our main sources of revenue being rates, revenue and growth, as noted in the report, is actually under a little bit of pressure at the moment as a result of growth. We've seen over the last 12 months a little bit of growth dropping off in that space, and that's impacted on our town planning and development fees, which were actually behind in the March result to budget, and a little bit in our rates growth as well. So whilst we're in front on revenue, in those couple of major sources, we're under a little bit of pressure at this point in time. In relation to expenses, there's probably three major expenditure types for council, just for your information. Obviously, our major materials and services, as you'll note in the report, is favourable year to date by a couple of $1 million. And we're a little bit under pressure in terms of employee expenses. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is in relation to our waste business, where we're having to engage a little bit more of contract labour and overtime to manage that. And also through February and March, on the back end of the wet season, we chose a different delivery method in that we actually engaged some contract labour through an agency staff to deliver on those mowing routines versus what we would have used through an external contractor. The external contractors weren't able to supply that because of the drier period before Christmas. So that means the expense was in employee costs versus in materials and services. The main impact that's affecting the reason why expenses are adverse year to date is depreciation's about 1.2 million adverse. We have over $2.4 billion in assets, so depreciation's in about $70 million a year. So as a percentage it's quite low, but in dollars terms it becomes relatively high. And the other area is when we repair and rehabilitate assets, we obviously need to write off the balance of existing assets, and that's currently impacting on the operating position. We're doing some work at the moment at that with the CEO just to classify whether that impacts the operating or the capital. And if that does come the other way, it would mean that we're in a slightly more favourable operating position. In terms of the capital program, which I think is also worth highlighting, our capital program is a little bit behind year to date. March was positive in that we actually spent what we forecast to spend, but year to date we're probably slightly behind on the delivery of the program. This is again pre-COVID. The forecast of the infrastructure department was to have increased spending over the last quarter, and obviously that will be dependent now upon how matters transpired over the next few months. And the other key area in the report is that in relation to cash, and that's obviously, as you can see in the report, is on track as it stands at the moment. So I think that's probably the major points that I had in the reports, but happy to take any questions from the councillors at any stage.
Any questions? I guess for myself, thank you, Jeff. The council's been asked by the Minister for Local Government to respond to a survey on the impacts to the council of COVID-19, and this includes impacts to our services and workforce, our financial position, and other matters like regulatory services. So from a financial perspective, what is your opinion of COVID?
To be honest, it's very difficult to ascertain specifically what that is at this point in time, and to quantify that in exact dollars. We know, like all businesses out there, will have some level of impact on a number of areas, particularly probably areas like our fees and charges. We don't know, for example, if we're going to need, or if council makes a decision, for example, to extend licence fee waivers for a period of time further, or whether our businesses will continue to need to have some relief in that space. The other area of things like if the economic stimulus is not there for the development industry, then things like our fees and charges and our developer contributions we could see drop off quite substantially over both the next quarter and also from there onwards. The other area we need to be conscious of is just our cash flow, things like the ability of our community to pay in these times. And we know that there'll be various people struggling to be able to meet that. And if they're unable to meet the payments of rates for us, then that obviously can impact on our own cash flows. And we'd then need to assess that at the time, depending on what that would do for our own program of works at that stage. That's probably the main impact, but I apologise, it's very hard to quantify exactly what would be the dollars impacts at this stage. The main things that we can quantify is decisions of council, for example, to waive fees and charges in certain areas as relief packages. We would know what those would cost us. But in terms of the ongoing revenue reductions, that would be difficult to quantify. At this stage, we've not, our employee costs are still remaining the same. We've maintained our existing workforce as previously been highlighted.
Thank you. I noticed that the interim administrator, the former interim administrator, Greg Chimello, when he came up with the budget for 1920, was forecasting about a $3 million surplus.
Yes.
How is that looking?
Prior to COVID, we were reasonably on track. Again, very hard to determine, but it will be under pressure. We would expect to see some level of drop-off of revenue over the next quarter, and we expect our expenditure in most cases to stay the same. We know there's certain programs, things like events, that we can't deliver, and so there'll be some reduced unspent monies in that space. Whether that's enough to offset the reduction in revenue will be hard to determine. We've also got things like received dividends as a shareholder of Queensland Urban Utilities. They've also foreshadowed to us difficulties in terms of their financial position as a result of COVID, and depending on how that plays out for them, it may then play out in terms of dividends that they would normally pay to us in June, which could also affect our financial result.
Well, look forward to working with you and your team, Jeff, in developing the budget, but also making sure that we can support our community and our businesses as best we can. Are there any other questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Huddy. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillors.
Is there anything else we'd like to discuss? In that case, I move to the vote and call for a division for these monthly statements. All those in favour? Unanimous, so it's carried. Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank all the councillors. It's been a long couple of weeks, and also to the CEO and the team and the council. The executive leadership team have been really impressive the last 2 weeks, and I look forward to working with you all for the next 4 years. Here, I think I heard from the floor. So thank you very much for briefing us and working so closely with us. So I'll now declare the meeting closed at 3:20. Thank you. Anything else? That's it? Do you press the button? Bye.